Hey, what's up? It's Jake from Nimbus DevOps, and I'm going to do another script with you, and this one's going to get kind of crazy. So let's talk about list overlap. So before we talked about zipping lists together, and it was very one-to-one, zero-to-zero, one-to-one, two-to-two, A to A, B to B, C to C kind of pairing, right? Name with an instrument with an age. Next name, next instrument, next age. Well, what if you're trying to compare two lists, and you're going to take these two lists and overlap them and go, what do they have in common, or what do they not have in common? And that's what we're going to go over. So the first thing we want to do is create two lists of different lengths. Okay, so I'm going to create a list A, and in here I'm going to have like 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, and 89. And then I'm going to create another list called B. And here I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay. And then I have accomplished what our first goal is. Now our second requirement is that we need to return a new list that only contains the elements that are common between the lists. Oh, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Okay, so how am I going to do this? I'm going to be like, okay, well, first thing I want to do is I'm going to make a new list because I need to return a new list. And I need to go, so let's look at all the numbers, all the elements in the sequence A. So for I in A, okay. And what do I want to do? I want to say if for I in A. Here, this is going to get kind of crazy. If I, okay, so the first element, 1, if I in B, so if 1 is in B, the list B, then C dot append, whatever that I value is, and then just print C, the new list, when you're done. Something like that. That should work, right? So let's check this. So Python 5, and we can see that they have in common 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and 13. Okay, so it went through this and said, okay, for I and A, so 1, is 1 in this list? Yes, okay, go ahead and add that. Here's a 1. Okay, the next number, 1, is this in this list? Yes, it's right here. Okay, go ahead and add that, and so on and so forth until I got to the end, to 89, and then just printed out our new list. So that seems to work. So let me add another requirement. Do not add any duplicate values. Okay, so now it's going to go if I and B, so is 1 and B, it's yes, okay, add it. And then it's going to get to the second number, it's going to go, is 1 and B, and it's going to be yes. But I already have it in here, right? So we might also go, if I and B, and not in C. Okay, so we didn't add this. Why is it red? Why is it mad at me? Expected a colon. If I in B, oh, and I not in C. Sorry. So if I is in B, but not in C, then we're going to add it. So what does that mean? So let's start with the first one. Is if 1 is in B, okay, and it is, it's right here, and it's not in C, C is empty, then go ahead and add it to C. Okay, cool. So right now C has 1. And then it's going to go to the second one, and it's going to go for I in A. Okay, so here we go. If I in B, okay, so I is now the second number 1. It is in B, right? But we don't want to add it again. And we say, and I not in C. And we go, okay, but we did add a 1 here. Now I is actually in C, so we're not going to do that. And then it's going to go through the rest and then print our new list. And we should see this, but there should only be one value equal to 1. So let's try that. And there we go. Cool. So that worked. So you can do some really strange if I and B and I not in C. But just remember, like I didn't add I said if I and B and not in C. You still have to repeat it. If I and B and I not in C. It's two compound sentences, or it's a compound sentence with two complete sentences. So you can't just borrow I from over here. Okay. So that works, right? So now let's make this real fun. Do the same thing with two lists of random length where each element is a random number. So how do I do that? Okay, so let's start over. Okay, so now I'm gonna get rid of this, all of this. So I'm gonna go, okay. Well, I need the random library, so we're gonna import random. So you're learning a new library today. And I'm gonna use the randint function, which is a random integer, and you just give it a between what two numbers? You ever played as a kid? Like, give me a number, pick a number between 1 and 10. Well, I could just put random.randint and then 1 and 10, and it would do that. And if I set this to a value of a and then printed a, I could run this script and it would be like 10, 5. It would just pick a random number, whatever you want. So we're going to use this, and first what we need is we need some kind of length or something like that, right? We need to make a list. So before we were creating empty lists, but I need to do two lists, right? And you don't ever want to repeat your code. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a function, okay, and I'm going to call this random list, okay? And in this list, I'm going to say I have a list L1 and it's empty. And after I create this empty list, I need to know how long it's going to be, right? So then I can go list length equals, and then let's make a random number. Okay. So if I ran this right now, all it does is create an empty list, and then it makes a variable list length, and that variable has a value of a number we don't know. And let's do between 1 and 100. And for now, let's just print list length and make sure this works. So I have this function, so I need to call it to use it, right? So I'm just going to call it like that. And then we're going to go, does it work? 85. Cool. 2. That's a very short list. Okay, so that works, right? We don't need to print the list length anymore. So now I have an empty list and a list length. So now I need to put stuff in my empty list, right? So I could go, let's see, for I in range list length. So make an empty list, make a random number, and then for every number in that number. So for I in range, whatever that 0 through whatever that is minus 1, we're gonna just L1 dot append whatever I is, right? Now, if we did that, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 through whatever the number is. So we don't want to do I. We're actually going to append it with another random number. So we're going to make a random number, and then we're going to iterate through that random number times and make a new number in list L1, and the value of that number is going to be a random number, if that makes sense. So if you do this, it's not going to actually do anything. Normally we print stuff. So we're also going to return, we're going to learn something called return. And that's how you just return a value. So I'm going to make a list, random number, for I in that random number of times, add a random number to this list, and then return this list And then what I can do is I can make a list called A and say, use the random number, or the random list function to make a random list. And I need another random list, list B, so we can compare them, right? So I'm just going to call this function to make two lists like this, right? And if I wanted to, I could just print them both, print A, B, and you could see what that would look like, right? Or what I could do is I could return this, oops, L1, but I could also just print L1 really quick so you can see what in the heck this is, right? So, and it's grayed out. Let me go up here and go into there, and oops, not that one, because that would be very long. Save. Okay. Hopefully you're following so far. Let's see what this does. Holy cow. Let's do this. Let's go print random list like that so we can see it a little better. Okay, so random list. This is much longer than this one, and each element in this list of random length has a random number in it. And some of them are repeated, and some of them are not repeated. At a quick glance, I can just see here's the number 65. It has 65 in here again. And what we want is a new list with unique numbers in it, and however long that is, doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an empty list again. And then under here, I'm going to say for I in A, just like we did before, if I in B and I not in C, C dot append I. And then at the end, we will just print our list C, something like that. So let's see what that does. We can see here, holy cow, there's only two values in here, but it did find a match. 75 is in, oh, here it is right here, 75. It's in there. Is it in here more than once? I don't see it more than once. So let's run it again. So here's a longer one and a much longer one, and we can see that there are actually a lot of matches between these two. So as you can see, this would take forever if you were doing this by hand, or if you had to write a program and enter all these values and insert them and whatever. And so using this import random library, you can actually use the randint function and generate a list of a random length where each element in that list is a random number twice, and then compare them and make a new list that has only the values in common without creating duplicates. So that is a more advanced use of the for loop. Even though it's very short and very simple, you can see just how powerful Python is. So if you have any questions about doing random stuff, let me know. I love random stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.